You are live, Commissioner.
Okay, thank you. It is 10:17 a.m. and the Board of County Commissioners coming out of executive session. We do, I believe, have a motion that,
Yes, sir. I would move to authorize the county's attorney to enter into a stipulation regarding a claim for damages. That's THMAL 030821 Maladano to extend any limitations period and stipulate to other terms to facilitate pre-litigation mediation and settlement negotiations of the claim against Thurston County.
Second.
it's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion on the motion?
No, sir.
No, sir.
Call for the vote.
Commissioner Mejia,
Aye.
Commissioner Edwards.
Aye.
Commissioner Minzer.
Aye. Motion passes. Thank you, Jane.
Thank you, Jane. Appreciate it.
Got what you need?
Thank you. Yes, thanks very much.
You bet. Okay, that's item number 1 on this morning's work session, Commissioners check-in. And we're up to item 2, which is reports on external boards and commissions. And I'll turn to Commissioner Mejia. I think you alluded to having a report last Tuesday.
Yeah, I was taking notes right now. Last week I came back from my travels. So on Thursday I had several meetings. One of them that was with Jimmy Madison from Olympia Micro Shelters, and he had a lot of great ideas. And so I spoke with Councilmember Jim Cooper, who's the chair of the Regional Housing Council, to go take a tour of some of his projects. I also attended the Law and Justice Council. Commissioner Minzer was not there, so I had the opportunity to go. There was not much going on, so not really anything to report on that. On Friday, I had the Regional Housing Council Executive Team meeting, and that's where we discussed, as I said on Tuesday, in regards to the quality in property.
Is that the one that burned down?
Yeah, the one that burned down, and some of the potential uses, and again, I stressed just the priority. I feel that Ensign Road and Deschutes Parkway are really, and they said they're still juggling ideas around, but that they would let us know. Another topic that came up was in regards to the home fund, and I let them know that I had asked Ramiro for this to be a topic of discussion for the board at our next planning session. So I told them to hold off until we have that discussion as a board.
And that discussion needs to include this 1277 and how
I worked with, touch base with Tom this morning, so we'll bring that information.
okay, just
Yeah, so we
new
just,
legislation that might complicate thinking, or
Things.
not complicate, it's great to have new tools, but you need to know what tools are on the table before you
Agreed.
select the tool to pick up.
so, so I said, just to please hold off until us as a board can have a discussion about, what way we're going to proceed or not, or, just to look at our options. On the weekend, I attended a dinner at the Cultural Center, Cultural Community Center, and workforce training. It was an ambassador's dinner where I was joined by several council members and other community members, just to learn about what the community center is doing and how it's going to be basically just a place for our community here. And they're doing a lot of great work through their buy one give one meal. They've given out more than 4,000 meals out to the community, including several organizations. They also will go down to the homeless camps. One of their main philosophies is everyone deserves a warm meal. And so that's one of the projects that they've been doing, which I think is pretty great. On Monday, I attended the JASCOM retreat, and we came up with a strategic plan on what we're going to be, basically, what's gonna be our new strategic goals. And it was a very good, productive meeting, and I was very happy with what we discussed. Of course, you know, the strategic planning is always funding, animal care, community involvement, and the facility, and of course, we know that they're all tied together, but I think the discussion was really good between all the board. After that, I had my first emergency food and shelter program where several organizations came in and reported on what they had done with the funding that was given to them. And so there were a lot of great reports. It is very obvious there's still a huge need in the community, so it was just really incredible to hear just the different organizations and see that, you know, that they've used their funding for great programs, and they're out there helping the community, but you know, like they're saying, there's still a lot of need, and supply chain is really affecting most of our nonprofit organizations here as well.
I'm not tracking on what meeting that was.
The emergency food and shelter.
Is that a committee or something?
Yeah,
I never heard of it. What is it? Who's involved?
it's United Way. Ramiro, do you know? It's one of the committees I got assigned.
Committee?
Yeah,
Which
from
one
the
of
board.
committees?
Yeah,
Really?
yeah.
I don't even remember that.
So it was
Is it a new committee?
no, it was always been in the list.
Was it Hutch before, or who had it?
I think
think so.
was. Yeah, Hutch was.
Yeah,
Emergency food and shelter.
yeah, and they meet quarterly, so
Okay.
this was like
And
my
in
first
fact,
meeting.
we tried because we didn't get that information in time, so I think you missed the first meeting, I believe.
Yeah, I missed the first meeting because they didn't have me on their list, and so then I finally got on the list and was able to join on at this meeting, so.
Okay, good to know.
But, yeah, so they meet
That's why we have
quarterly.
these check-ins.
Yeah.
And they meet quarterly, so that's why I've never reported on it before.
Okay.
And of course, yesterday was the Chambers event that we all attended in regards to Thurston Strong, and yeah, that is all I have to report on.
That's a lot of stuff. Sheriff?
I
External boards?
think the only thing of note is I attended ORCA for Commissioner Mejia,
Thank you, by the way.
and I think the only real issue there is the executive director is going to retire.
Oh, wow.
So,
When?
and she's not gonna be in a rush. They're gonna have a search going on now, starting now. I think Jim Cooper is going to chair that subcommittee. And with the help of the existing executive director, and she's not in a big hurry, but she would like to be out of there by, she's got a trip planned or something, so she'd like to be out by the end of February, I think is the date. That, so anytime between, I mean, she'd like to retire at the end of the year, but if that doesn't happen, then she's not gonna walk out and leave anybody high and dry.
Okay, well, that's big news.
You know, she used to be my boss,
Oh, is that right?
First County,
Oh, okay.
fragment year.
Okay, so that's really the only committee event of
Event,
note,
yeah.
you know, that I think is worth bringing up. The county manager brought up the issue about Capcom, and we're working on that, so.
So I don't know that I have any big reports. Climate is this Monday. I did attend the Capitol Lake Executive Work Group briefing, but the board's gonna get its own briefing. So I don't wanna really go deep into it because you guys will get your own chance to ask questions. I guess I would say at a high level that there was some surprise among the group about water quality statements made in the EIS, like previous ecology work had really made the differences in water quality sound between the alternatives very distinct. And this is my characterization, but I think the group agreed, like the EIS kind of mushes them closer together, doesn't make them seem as starkly different in terms of which one will help water quality in Bud Inlet and Capitol Lake. So there were a lot of questions about that. Why is your conclusion so different than previous ecology work? The answer from the consultants was, well, when ecology does like a SEPA analysis, they look at like the worst case scenario, like what could in theory potentially happen. And that wasn't our way of looking at it. We're trying to predict what will happen, and it's not as dire as what ecology might have suggested. That's kind of what I got from their answer. So
That's interesting.
so yeah, there was that, which was surprising, but then there was the finance. So I thought the financing would, between the different proposals would be more similar. It turns out they're not similar at all. So it may end up being money that drives the decision as much as anything else, because the estuary option is pretty significantly the cheapest option, long-term. If you do an estuary or a hybrid, you can manage the sediment in a way on site that reduces the cost significantly versus the managed lake. You have to do this big dredging and sediment, and the sediment has to be dealt with externally, and it exponentially increases the cost over time. So there's more of a like annual maintenance cost with the estuary and to deal with management of sediment and testing and all that. But if you look at how much you're paying over a 30-year period, the managed lake is by far the most expensive option. So that may end up being more of a that may end up being more of a part of the discussion than we thought.
Okay.
I kind of guessed that the dollars wouldn't be definitive. It would be the ecological things that would be definitive, and it might be the reverse. It might be the ecological aspects are similar-ish, but the dollars drive the decision because it's just so expensive. And of course, the question, then the last question is who's paying for this long-term and what structure? Of course, if someone else is paying, then maybe we don't care if it's more expensive to dredge and do a lake. But the suggestion has always been that the local jurisdictions would contribute, if not completely bear the burden of long-term ongoing maintenance. And the state would pay to convert it into whatever we decide we're gonna do. So again, take a look at it. There's an executive summary. The binder's on my table. You're welcome to look at it. It's the county copy.
I took a copy of
Yeah, or you can
it.
copy the
It was-
executive summary, or you can copy the whole binder, whatever. It's there to be had. And you'll get a chance to ask questions. Jim Cooper.
Do you know when this presentation is?
Yes, it's August 6th or something like that. It's like the 7th, first week of August.
That's my deadline for
Yeah, let me just,
going over the binder.
it's on the 5th
August 5th. Thank
at
you.
2 p.m.
Okay.
And the city of Olympia has, staff has generated some questions, so you might, and I can circulate those so you guys can take a look at what their staff is looking at. It's a good summation of kind of what the executive work group's questions were like, so I think that'd give you a good heads up as to what people are thinking. Let's see, I don't know that I have anything else. Lot hasn't met. I had the same thing that you had with Jimmy Madison about micro shelters. I had the tour previously, but we had a follow-up conversation. But I'm leaving that to the RHC to kind of figure out where they fit into our long-term plan.
Yeah, that's.
I'm hoping that, yeah, I mean, just on that, I just hope that we can take the home fund discussion, the ARPA funding, potentialities, the $14.90 or whatever it is, $14.50, $14.10, I forget, maybe Robin remember. That money that we were able to, that sales tax that we were able to hold back, and we have an informal commitment to collaborate regionally.
Yep.
The micro shelter concept, how that evolved from the original idea of those, Rubbermaid sheds, and then it turned out to be a quasi tiny home. I just hope we can and then the need for Ensign Road and the RV, and then we just need a kind of a comprehensive strategy for moving forward, that we can show the community we've thought it through, and here's what we're doing. It connects to our 5-year it gets those camps cleared, and people into better, more adequate shelter. It addresses long-term maintenance. I mean, I know this is a tall ask, but this is really what we put on the back of the RHC, so
Yeah.
hopefully you guys are looking toward that.
So me and, my report, I let Councilmember Cooper know that, I had met with Jimmy Madison and I let him know when I do the tour, it would be great if we go together, you know, him as the chair and me as the vice chair, go in there and tour together. That way, if there are any questions, we can approach it more of an RHC mentality rather than each jurisdiction mentality. So I know that we're gonna plan to go see that together and work on that together. And so, you know, I think there's like so many things right now up in the air. It would be nice to just start actually bringing stuff down and be like, okay, this is what we're gonna do on. So I do agree with you, Commissioner
Excellent.
Mensah.
Yep, and whenever I see RHC members, I hammer that message. So this is my only chance to do that to you. All right, well then let's go to commissioner items. And I was wondering if maybe we could start with the port meeting that we're having to have at noon. Ramirez, maybe have some updates for the board and, or whatever, however you think we need to, whatever we need to touch base on at this point.
There's I have been in many conversations with the executive director of the port. There has been, as you know, Commissioner Mensah testified on the last port meeting, encouraging the port commission to delay the action. They will give you the opportunity to coordinate this with the Board of County Commissioners. And I believe the Board of County Commissioners may be very interested in exploring this option after we reach the 300,000 population. The numbers that we had so far, I think, is 200. You know, Mary Hall, the county auditors, we're at 295,000. The last number that I checked was 297. No here, no there. Those numbers are 2020. So moving to 2021, I believe by the end of this year, and OFM will give us that indication maybe in the spring of 2022 that we might be reaching 300,000 population. At that point, the board will be, I will bring this item for your discussion, for your consideration, whether that moving from 3 to 5 commissioner representation will be something we will need to consider. The Port of Olympia is commission is interested in moving forward, perhaps this November. There has been a lot of discussion. Senator Hunt has submitted a letter just about the same message as we have discussed in the past. It seems to be a little bit rushed at this point.
In the last few days, he submitted a letter.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
He gave a lot of detail with regard to the districting mechanics, but overall, it's the same.
overall, it's the same message. Seems to be rushed. There seems to be a need to broader coordination with the Board of County Commissioners when we reach 300,000. And really is to make sure the voters understand what the purpose and intent of this request. So that seems to be the tone. It will be interesting to see see how the conversation evolves at noon. We have provided some recommendations in language to the proposed resolution to the Port of Olympia Commission. They perhaps they may consider, if they move forward for the November 2021 ballot measure, to have a joint conversation with the Board of County Commissioners on the redistricting. And that redistricting really is going to be essential in making sure the Board of County Commissioners have a conversation jointly with the Port of Olympia. And there's one of the main objectives is in any redistricting, you know, we are not going to be districting out a sitting commissioner. So there's a lot of nuances on that. They needs to be discussed. So that language was submitted for the Port of Olympia consideration of the resolution. There may be an option. They could, because if they want to move this and to put it in November 2021 general election, they need to take a formal action on Monday. on the 27th. That seems to be a very tight timeline. They may consider delaying this resolution, but later this year. But the statute states that even if they take an action in December, depending what time in December, that ballot measure needs to be coming up at the next special or general election. So either
Special or general
Yeah.
election? So like February?
Yep, either February or April. So that it still has a little bit of a time constraint. The only thing that we found out in conversations with our attorney is if they are successful, say this November or a special election next spring with the voters, the election of the new commissioners will occur in November of 2023.
That's a change. So the third thing that I addressed with the port is basically moot because apparently they are not allowed to go on an even year. They'd have, even if they pass it this year, they'd have to wait till 2023 to elect their new commissioners,
No matter what.
no matter what, because that's what Elizabeth has confirmed with their attorneys, I believe. So that third thing that we asked for is gonna happen just because it's gotta happen.
It's gonna happen. So that gives a little more latitude, time in terms of working on the redistricting. And that is at least a good option. With your concurrence, I'm gonna be suggesting today that perhaps the Port of Olympia Commission consider a joint resolution of intent. Joint resolution of intent predicated on the 300,000, that perhaps this measure should be on the November 2022. And I'm gonna suggest that. I don't know where it's gonna go, but that is gonna be my suggestion for the Port of Olympia Commission to have a joint resolution of intent. Go ahead.
What's the legality? Is that binding or what's the deal on when you do a resolution like that?
It's just of intent.
Yeah, so it really doesn't,
No,
other than it indicates where we're at.
But I think
and it might get the community conversation
But
started.
I think it's what it does, the values to the communities, because you as a board intend to have those serious conversations, to have a joint ballot measure with the Port of Olympia, if they're amicable to that. I don't expect, obviously, if that, they need to have their own conversations. I don't think any decisions will be made, but I think it's going to be a good conversation. And
You mentioned a couple numbers, we're at 295 or we might be at 297 but when is the census actually going to be out? So somebody
September.
knows the numbers already? Is that what?
September is the new date that we have. The county will receive the numbers at some point mid to late September. The state will receive the numbers in late August, I think, but it's raw numbers and they're not committed to passing it on
But
to the
somebody's got a
local
preview as to what that
Yeah,
number
that's what
is.
I'm wondering about.
I have not seen a preview. I've no idea if anyone's heard anything. I don't know.
And that's what the 295, 297, but consider this, Commissioner. The census was conducted in the summer of 2020. So the data that we're gonna be receiving it's already a little bit dated.
Yeah.
And the population in the county keeps growing. So that is at least my expectation, whether it's real or not, but by the end of 2021, most likely.
So by April of 2022, we're almost certain to
Yeah,
be across those.
most likely.
If we're not, possibly the
Yeah.
fall, but
Most
almost
likely.
certainly.
But do we go by commerce or do we go by the census? How does that work?
Go by OFM, because
Yes.
OFM?
Yeah.
So,
OFM.
yeah, but I mean, under the state law that says once you surpass 300,000, who has the say you're over 300,000? Is it?
OFM.
Yeah, OFM.
Oh, it is OFM. Okay,
Because if
so
it was based on the census, it would be difficult because it's only every
10 years, that's what
But
I
they,
was wondering, yeah.
the way it was explained to me by whoever, I can't remember who it was, I think it was somebody from City of Lacey, but in any case, the way they were explaining it to me was that the census happens every 10 years. And then in the interim, there's an annual update by OFM that basically is their methodology coming from the calibration of that 10-year census. And then, maybe the reality is here and their projection is here or here, but and then every 10 years, there's a census and it recalibrates. So OFM resets based on the census, and then every year for 10 years, they do their, methodological projection. So what I heard was that the projection for the 10th year of OFM's, normal,
Right.
uncalibrated projection was, I heard 295. But that could be completely recalibrated when we get these census numbers. So I'm not 100% sure we're not gonna have the number as of September.
Well, I think.
But
we are.
Ramiro's point is valid, that even if we don't, we know that with another year of growth in this county, we're close enough that by next spring's, it usually is in April that OFM does its annual tweak.
But what about if we do hit 300,000 in September? Is the port apt to do something different based on that immediate number? But they're not required to be 300,000.
No, they're not
Split,
required.
are they?
They are governed under different statutes, so they can go without.
They're gonna have to make their decision before they know that, that's the whole thing.
So that's, I think the Port of Olympia may consider a couple of options. If they want to have this on the November 2021 ballot, they need to take an action on Monday. And, but also they can delay the action and take at the end of this year. If that is the case, right, then if your scenario pans out, in September, we'll know that we got over 300,000, then the conversation may change.
I'm wondering if learning that they cannot seat these commissioners till 2023 anyway will change their thinking at all about the need to put this on this year, because then there'll be this big gap. Now, I know there's other considerations, but it's at least relevant to their thinking, I would think, because I know that they would have liked to pass it this year, seat the new commissioners next, or, elect the new commissioners in 2022. And that's not gonna be legally possible, from what I understood from here.
And that's what my understanding is, that they cannot have the elections of the new commissioners next year.
So, the thing that I wanted to say in this meeting is just, hopefully that all change, that'd all be great if we can, if they would change their mind about that. But if, I still wanna continue to push, and I think, I checked with Mary yesterday to make sure she hadn't changed her thinking on this, and she had not, which is that we need I would like to see as firm as possible of a commitment to a joint redistricting commission, no matter what.
As we move forward here, is there any other county, maybe other than Spokane County, that is in the middle of this or has done this without forming a charter county? Do we have any examples out there? And did Spokane finally go to 5 commissioners? Have they
Well,
actually?
They were told.
They were
So-
forced to by the
Yes,
legislature.
I know, but did they finally do it? And
Yeah, because
there's
they-
now
they-
5 commissioners
Yeah,
elected?
the appeal was lost at the Supreme.
But yeah, but did they actually move forward and there's now five commissioners on their board?
I'm not sure, but they're working on that.
I'd like to they're gonna go through it. We at least should be watching what they're doing. I mean,
Theirs is a little different, just because they're elected by district, that's the state law.
okay, are we not gonna be that way?
We're not gonna be that way, because we're under a different law that prohibits us from doing it that way. So,
I thought once we hit 300, then we were over that threshold or something, no?
no, this law says all you get to do is add 2 commissioners, everything else stays the same. So all 5 of us would be elected by our district in the primary, but by the whole county in the general election.
Okay,
Whereas in Spokane, the legislature said, now when you hit 400, this is kind of what's kind of goofy about it, because depending how fast we grow, we might have to change again.
oh, that's, okay, so when we hit 400.
We hit 400, we're gonna have
to
to,
do what they're doing.
yeah, if we
Okay.
haven't gone to 5, we'll have to, and if we have gone to 5, we'll have to convert it to district representation.
okay.
Which is,
Okay.
I think that piece of legislation was a forced charter,
Kind of,
because that's what it is.
Yeah, but I don't think it did other things to other elected offices
no,
and stuff.
yeah, it was.
Just the
But,
one issue.
because that's what, Clark County went through their charter. They
Right,
created a
charter.
5 council members, but they didn't go with an elected executive.
Right, still appointed.
It's still appointed, so it's a little bit different. So there's a lot of nuances on the charter approach as to how you want to.
Do you have to call, it a council if it's more than 3, or can you still have 5 commissioners? Why does everybody call it a council?
The charter county, they call council members.
Yeah, I've noticed that, I'm just wondering if
On
that's.
this scenario, will be called commissioners.
Right. So I'm looking at the OFM population estimates for 2021, and we are the only county that is close to that 300,000 mark. And as you said, the uncalibrated 2021 population estimate for Thurston is 295,300. There's not another county that's close to 300,000. The closest it gets is 200 and, let's see, there's 275
Kitsap must be close to it, isn't it?
in Kitsap, 275 in Kitsap. But it's unlikely that they'll hit the
Yeah,
mark
they won't,
this
right.
year or next year. Everyone else that's over is charter.
It's charter county.
And charter hasn't flown here, I think, in 5 times.
Failed twice.
Well,
No, more than that, yeah.
Yakima
I've
is
been
at
around a long time.
200 and, no,
Didn't you campaign against it too?
261,000. It's
Huh?
too low.
Didn't you campaign against it?
Yeah, I campaigned against the charter county when it was up, mainly because of consolidation of elected offices.
Was the sheriff gonna be affected? or-
Yeah, the sheriff was gonna be affected,
The way it was
the
proposed.
auditor and
The
treasurer, I
was
think, were
fine.
gonna be affected. Maybe the clerk, I don't know. I mean, I don't remember now.
The clerk would not have been elected, it would have been appointed.
Okay, something, I mean, I remember there were some issues that I was concerned about reducing the elected. I had been involved at that time about changing King County from an appointed sheriff to an elected sheriff, and then doing the same thing in Pierce County. I was working with both those groups. I was president of the Sheriff's Association in those
King
days.
County just went back.
Yeah, now they went the
Then
other
back
way.
to
So
an
they've
appointed
tried
sheriff.
elected, now they're going back the other way. Pierce County's talked about it too.
Yeah, Pierce County was an appointed sheriff, and then it was a revised charter.
Both of them had to do with corruption though.
And then it was an elected sheriff, but I think Pierce County is assessing going back,
Back to appointed.
appointed
Yes.
sheriff.
Well, because of issues, I guess they're talking about.
Okay, well, is everybody comfortable then with being ready for? I just wanted to make sure
I'm
everybody
ready to
had
talk about
the
it.
information
Yeah,
ready
that's,
for the
that's,
board
that-
meeting.
that's the only thing that I can share at this time, obviously, there's more conversation that I've had with the executive director that I'm not privy, it's
My-
just
I'm
for
just-
preview, so.
Okay,
My concern is that if we move if the port moves forward and it fails because of the rush, then it makes it harder for the public to accept what we're proposing. That's all, I think.
yeah, I mean, that's the lead from Sam Hunt's letter, which I think I'm glad we can really emphasize that it's gonna take, quoting from his letter, expansion is not without controversy, lay the groundwork first.
Let me concoct that.
Yeah, I haven't seen it, so.
A move to 5 county and commission districts should not be proposed without first building strong support across the county.
I think it's all about trust.
Did she?
Commissioner, do you have Sam's letter?
Yep, I do.
It was just on my desk, so.
It is all about trust, though, that's what it boils down to.
Okay, Commissioner Mejia, you have a commissioner item? We've got time.
I do not. It's
I
fine.
have a question maybe Robin can answer.
I think I have.
We're talking about JASCOM and what may or may not, go on there. How much do we spend now, thank you, towards JASCOM? And the proposal you're talking about, how much are we contemplating spending? Because we haven't got the budget yet. And what is that total? And some time back, the sheriff had proposed doing animal control. And I've not figured it out exactly because I was opposed to it when I was sheriff. So, you know, but there's different philosophies existing at all times. So, I mean, he's the sheriff, so it doesn't matter to me if he's proposing that he would do something instead of doing JASCOM and end up with 3 deputy sheriffs out of it or something that he could call on, kind of like what we did with weight control. For some time back, we had a weight control officer for the county, basically working for the county to preserve roads, to help them with construction and different
It
things
was
like that.
assigned to Public Works.
Yeah, assigned to you.
And then Sheriff's Nazar decided.
But to me, because I was the one that put that together way back, before
Right.
you got there, wasn't it? Was it?
Way before, when I got there, the sheriff deputy was assigned to Public Works to do specific traffic control.
And
weight control, yeah.
the benefit was that he was a commissioned, fully trained police officer. He handled the weight issues and traffic flow issues, you know, and maybe coordinating some more coverage for extensive projects and things like that. But we got the benefit of another deputy sheriff that was able to respond to a very serious situation. We wouldn't send him to, you know, minor things, but if he was the closest deputy, we got the benefit of another deputy sheriff being able to respond. So if the sheriff is proposing, or had proposed, and I haven't talked to him about it for a year, and
Why?
you know, he mentioned it, and it didn't work out for whatever reason, so that's why could we talk about the possibility, that's all.
So
I'm sorry, he asked a question I'd like to respond to. $683,000 is
Is
our
what we
current
spend.
annual contract with
Animal.
Animal Services.
And it's another 250 or something to,
I thought it was 300.
I'll be able to look
How
up
much?
that.
Also, it was 3 and the 3.
300,000 to bump up to full service.
Yeah, I think because
Ish.
remember there's a little subsidy that JASCOM is doing, so we have
But
to
they're phasing
increase
out.
that, they're phasing out, so there may be a little more.
I'm thinking it was about $1 million, around $1 million is what we're gonna be talking about.
Yeah, and so I spoke with the sheriff about it on
Oh.
Friday.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay, good.
So I asked him, I was like, okay, this is what I'm thinking about fully funding JASCOM. What do you think? And his thought
Yeah,
was.
you're way ahead of me there.
So I was like, okay, like what do you think? And he said, I support it because he just doesn't want to get the calls anymore. It's adding an extra burden, especially with the new legislator that's gone down on his current deputies, to be responding to those calls. The second thing he said, or that we talked about is he wants the same service for the county residents that the cities are receiving. And basically, at the end of the conversation, what we said is, let's test it out. Let's fully fund JASCOM and let's see if it's working out. If we're still getting these calls, you know, to the sheriff's department, and we're seeing that they're still kind of, then we can have another call about where do we go from here. But basically, we can't say we're gonna go to something else if we really are, if we're really not fully funding JASCOM at this time. So he said he was in support for it. He said he was going to write a letter in support for it.
Okay.
So I was like, okay, I have reached out to his staff to see kind of like what the numbers are, like what the burden is actually on his office, like how many people are calling the sheriff's department. I have also asked JASCOM to give us that information too. How many calls are they getting where they cannot provide the full service? Because for me, in the end, it's like I want county residents to have the same services that city residents have, if and not to be bounced around and be frustrated. And because once they come to the commissioner's office, they're
They've
They
been
are,
through the hoops.
they've
already,
been
yeah.
through like,
We're
they,
already boiling.
they're at the boiling point, and
Okay.
I don't think it should be like that, and the sheriff agrees it shouldn't be like that, and so,
Okay, well,
Yeah.
good, that takes care of that.
So if I'm reading these right, the proposals last year is that Thurston County at the full share with no reduction would be roughly $1.2 million.
Yeah, that's kind of what I remember, so. Okay, and if that's,
It's an additional
and if-
$350,000.
if that can be pulled off and that's gonna solve the problem, well
But
then.
that was also because our reduced share price was gonna go up significantly because of the reduced subsidy, right? I mean, we were paying 680 something, that's gonna go up to 900 and something. And then you're adding another, so it's really doubling. It's not really doubling, but it's effectively doubling because of there would be two things at play.
I have not seen their new numbers yet. All I can tell you is what we had
Well,
last
you
year.
just said it was 683
It
is what we paid,
That's right.
and now you're saying 1.2 million, that's,
Would have been no subsidy with Thurston at the full share.
yeah. And that's what they're working toward, I think, over like 3
Right.
years or whatever. And we went through, just for your benefit, we went through all of this, and I'm glad, you're asking more specific numbers, which I appreciate, because I kind of asked the same questions at a higher level, like, we brought under sheriff in, because there was some letters and emails going around, and I couldn't figure out what the sheriff's proposal was, so we brought, I think it was under Sheriff Braniff in to a discussion, and then Sheriff Snaza during his budget presentation, I said, if we fully funded JASCOM, would that be a budget savings to you in a sense, because you wouldn't have to respond to all those calls? And he couldn't put a number on it, but he said, yes, it would. And so, based on that, we considered it. We just didn't feel like we had the money for it. We did consider it. But the complicating factor is that JASCOM is trying to wean off of subsidy, and so like I say, the reduced rate is going up.
So
So
I don't blame them for that.
no, I don't blame them for that either. They're doing the right thing, but it's just, to the timing wise, it's like, we're already gonna be paying more, and then we're gonna consider paying even more, so it makes when I first got on JASCOM in 2019, I had Jacob Ewing of Lacey run this number, and the number was 113,000. That was, at that time, that was the calculation of what the extra piece we'd have to pay to get to full service. Now we're looking at, 300 and something on top of a $300,000 increase to our previous service. So it's like, the numbers are going up. It's not anyone's fault. It's just the nature of the operation.
nature of the operation.
And is Yelm doing contract with JASCOM now?
Yes, they
See,
are.
that was another piece of that earlier discussion that maybe they had a dog pound or something, I don't know.
Yes, so they are contracting,
Okay.
and they talked about having a representative on the board. And that was actually came up at the strategic meeting, but they couldn't afford kind of going into that full
Administration. and all that,
administration
yeah.
service. But they are contracted with JASCOM.
Okay. Okay, well, that's my,
I just have an update on the board commissioners. And we were waiting for MRC to weigh in as to when the election of the two new commissioners will be, and it has to be in November, earliest November 2023. So that's
So that's
confirmed.
confirmed. So that's a good point on that.
so that's new to them when they get here at noon too.
Yeah, and we're gonna update the PowerPoint to reflect that.
Commissioner items, anything else?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Let's see.
I had a bunch, but I
Daycare.
think they've all been covered.
Daycare and impact fees, daycare. So I know we're coming up with a solution for the one issue. It sounds like, on this whole impact fee business.
So
But did we receive some information about buildings? If they're, from Mr. Pettit, if buildings are used for something in our own code or something, then it doesn't change. Didn't we have I get so many communications there, I'm not sure that, did we get something from him about, you can't you can't change the impact fee or something according to our own code?
He tried to argue that, I think he tried to argue that he pointed to a phrase in the code that says that it's about, impact fees are related to new development, basically.
Yeah,
And that
something like
therefore a conversion of something would not
Okay,
trigger.
that's what I'm
You
thinking.
wouldn't be able to charge any
Charge the
impact fee
rate.
because it's not a new development.
Okay,
Because I had told him the delta was the phrase I used, meaning the difference between the
okay,
previous
that's
use
it,
and the new.
that's it. Part of
use.
it I heard in here, I guess, yeah, okay.
And he's taking issue with the idea that you could charge an impact fee on the delta of a changed use because it's not a new development.
Okay, that was the issue.
And that came in like yesterday, so I don't.
Okay,
It's a
maybe.
brand new.
Yeah, brand new thing.
Email from him.
What is the deal on that? That's all, I'm just trying to figure that out. Okay, we kinda got it fixed.
I haven't had
But-
a chance to look at the email, I
So the,
apologize.
Okay, but the whole daycare thing. I didn't really-
What you will see next Tuesday afternoon, on your, or morning, when you review the agenda, there's gonna be two items
Okay.
we'll discuss. One will be to approve, the new traffic impact fees. They
Okay,
will take effect on January 1st, 2022.
okay,
The other item will be related to changing the code to allow for the exemptions for childcare and low-income housing.
okay,
And that is an ordinance. And you will see an item for you to set a public hearing for August 10th.
great.
And the August 10th, at that point, you will receive public testimony, because it's a code amendment. You receive public testimony, and at that point, based on that, I'll have a motion for you to approve the changes on the code.
Okay.
And that is, I believe, that is paramount. In my opinion, for you to move forward, the intent of you, I believe, is to support childcare centers.
Yeah.
No until next year, but now. And
Yeah.
that, the action that's going to do that.
Okay, but going back to the childcare issue and the rates charged and the difference between a northern rate childcare, and I don't have the numbers in front of me, but it's like $9 a square foot for a childcare facility in the north and $17 a square foot in the south. And that's not been explained adequately to me to understand that. Why the difference? Why would a business have to pay per square foot less up here and more down in Rochester?
It's density. And the consultants explained that is density because on the more urbanized areas, there is more opportunity for development, economy of scale. The more development is, they pay less for the users to fund those projects.
Who makes that decision? Who makes that final decision about those rates?
Obviously you by approving those.
Okay, so can I make a motion that the rates be the same? And here's where I'm going with that. In undergrowth management, the philosophy under growth management is to encourage growth in the urban core and discourage growth in rural America. I mean, that's basically the undertones of growth management. Consolidate the population where the services are. So we're making a conscious decision as a board to provide a service to the community, which is easier to obtain, and specifically it's daycare. We want to make it easier for citizens to put their kids in daycare, no matter where they live. We want to do it for Steamboat Island or West Olympia, Rochester, Bald Hills, doesn't matter. And as long as we have rates that are discriminatory, I guess is the best way I can put it, and are trying to force that population still to the north when they're living, we have the reality of, are we really gonna help people make it easier to do childcare? And now it sounds like we've covered it with the ordinance that we're
Well, that's,
talking
I
about
mean,
doing.
you're in the process, you may be considering reducing to about 80% regardless. So you are.
So maybe it's a moot point, once we get it all done.
Maybe it's a moot point, because with all due respect, if you're considering to have just a flat rate,
For daycare.
that may not be, for me, it becomes complicated. May I go to the whiteboard?
Yeah, I like it when you're at the whiteboard.
Thurston County. I know that's not the shape of Thurston County. Okay. So the traffic impact fees have areas.
Yeah.
Just for talking purposes, right? So let's assume this is South County. And this is the North County. This is more densely versus this is less dense.
Mhm.
So when the traffic impact fee is determined based on the growth that we're planning to have in the county, and we start developing what will be the impacts on the transportation system. As a result, we start developing projects to address the impacts on the transportation.
Okay.
So here we have two projects. Just for talking purposes, don't quote me on this, okay? Those two projects have a cost, let's say $1 million combined, right? So when they, depending on the use, you start establishing a fee based on that. You said, okay, you start saying on the rate of development, depending on the number of traffic trips that each development will generate. As an example, a single family home generates 10 trips per day.
And that's not the gospel, that you're just making that up right now.
No, this is
Or is that the way it is?
national standards.
Oh, that's the way it is right now.
Yeah. So
Okay.
those are, because we have
Okay.
guidance, this is national standard.
Okay, good enough.
So based on the 10 trips per day on a single family home, and based on the total cost of this project, we establish a fee. This is $10.
Okay.
Right? And similar to, commercial, they generate way too many trips, more,
Yeah.
right? So their impact fee will be 50. But everything is predicated on the total cost of this project. Because the rate of development here is less than, they still have to pay for that. Right? Let's move to the urban area. And you have the same two projects. And you have the same.
All right, when you say projects, are you talking about traffic projects? Or
Yeah.
are you talking about development?
No, traffic projects.
Like maybe a traffic circle.
Yeah,
or-
because we need to identify what projects, and we need to put a cost, because that's the response to the development.
Just overall development.
Overall development. So the same $1 million, right? And the same, it will be $10. But what happens is, here is gonna be 50 developments. Here is gonna be 10 developments. And that's how we cannot just overcharge.
Okay, so you're just gonna try to raise the $1 million in both places?
Yeah, because
Well,
we can.
and 50% of the $1
Right,
million. 'cause
Right,
we're-
50%, but it's just that purposes, right?
Yeah.
So in this case, you cannot charge a flat rate because the 50 developments will generate way more
I see.
than $1 million. So that is why in the urban areas,
it's part of the economy of scale, but it's
fee.
also, to me, in my mind, it's why it's a reasonable basis to only charge 50% of the total. It's kind of a mitigation of the fact that it's gonna disproportionately affect. So that's why you're, I mean, so
that is the.
what happens to the other 50% of those traffic projects? The whole community bears that, because we wanna support our South County communities.
Yeah.
And so we're striking that balance.
So that is the economy of scale, that you see the fees difference. Now, the other argument is, if you pay $10 here, then you pay. Right? All the $10 should remain in there. It doesn't work that way,
Right.
because this trip, the trips generated by the single home, they travel. So they touch on every single area.
And
The
it is,
majority-
it regardless of where they're going,
Right.
it does base on the whole jurisdiction.
It's just, and when, the argument that we heard on Tuesday, the tax is generated in a region, needs to be remaining in the region, it does. The region is Thurston County.
Yeah.
It's not the sub areas.
Yeah, I see.
So that's what the trip distribution.
I don't have to agree with it to understand.
No, that's my 2 cents,
Okay,
traffic impact fees.
yeah.
But with the daycare, the ordinance is basically
Gonna solve it.
gonna
For
solve.
daycare, it's kinda-
You may consider reducing by 80%.
Has this communication been, because when Mr. Weaver came and he gave the public comment, it seemed like
he didn't know.
he
didn't
didn't
know
know that we had just made that decision.
We
That
just
was one-
discussed that in that
It
one.
sounds like he wasn't up on, that project happens to be his dad's project, the daycare. And I guess he didn't know anything about it, I guess, I don't know.
So
And that's possible.
I don't know if it can be communicated, to them that,
Well, I think they know we're fixing it, I think,
Yeah, and,
but okay, but that's
I
gonna
talked to
fix that
Donna
one.
Weaver, I hadn't talked to Larry.
Okay.
so, yeah.
So that issue is pretty well, I guess, taken care of then, huh? Which I'm kind of in a dilemma, cause I don't want the impact fees to go up, so I might not vote for that, but I am gonna vote for I do want the daycare thing fixed, so I guess I can have a split vote on it.
didn't we separate them? I thought we did.
I don't know.
Yeah, they're
Yeah.
separated.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah,
So-
we separated them.
And I mean,
So the traffic impact fees will be here, and you said in the public hearing for the reduction of the childcare in the
Yeah,
code,
yeah.
is to say the public hearing is different. You have 2 items.
And I really do not understand, it's gonna be a slight increase that folks have referred to.
In the aggregate.
In the aggregate, yeah. And that is hard to get a grasp on, that's all on that. I was trying to figure out a way, okay, if we go 48% or something, would we get
So you
there?
could be able to say nobody pays.
Yeah, nobody paid more, that's all.
But then you get other categories that would be like a significant reduction.
Well, that's just but I never did get a grasp of what that truly meant, what
Yeah.
that other category is.
I think it's going up, I mean, if you looked at I think it's like 7.5% or 8%-ish in the aggregate.
And the aggregate.
But it hasn't been adjusted in 9 years, so,
And
so that's really,
because right now the risk really for the county is not to update the project list.
right.
Because as I said in those projects, it equates to a number. Those are the basis in which we establish the traffic impact fees. It will continue to charge traffic impact fees on projects that have been completed or for some reason they're not moving forward. That is a risk to the county. So and that is important. So as a result of updating the project list, the project cost goes up. And that's where you see a slight increase on the impact.
The gentleman that came and sat down by me yesterday at the conclusion of the deal, we talked a little bit about this, and he'd been involved in litigation with the city of Olympia that took this all the way to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court refused to hear it. So the government did win on that particular, same thing, I think, that you're
So
talking about.
this is, trafficking by keys are established by every single jurisdiction.
Sure,
in
yeah.
in the state.
So it has been argued, and whether I like it or not, doesn't matter, you know, I mean, it's been argued and pretty well decided, it sounds like. Okay. Well, I didn't have any other issues, because I knew that one was gonna be a little bit complicated.
Yeah, all my stuff is kind of it's been either gonna be covered or has been covered. You know, we dealt with the trail closure, we dealt with, the port.
Guardrails, you said? Sorry.
Not going there. Fish Passage, come on, people, Fish Passage, work with us. I thought it was really interesting to attend. I hesitate to even say this, but I can't resist telling my seatmates about, if you've ever been to a port meeting, they really do an unusual way of dealing with the public comment, and the commissioners respond to it, and then they have additional
arguments or something?
well, kind of, and they have additional, like, after each section of the agenda, they like reopen it to public comment. I mean, I'm sure they don't get as many people as we do, you know, and the day I was there was only me and Doug Ma. So there wasn't anybody else to talk about anything except the commissioner issue. But just really unusual, I've never seen a procedure like that before. But anyway, that was interesting, and that's about it.
You know, too bad I don't think they teach civics anymore in school, but
They just I thought they just reinstituted it.
I mean, it'd be kind of interesting to have different processes exposed to the public, because really the public doesn't know very much about what we do. The only elected officials, really, that some of the judges are known by name, you know, especially because they've presided over some high-profile thing. And the sheriff is generally known for whatever reason. I mean, that used to be a big discussion that we'd have. Well, if you stand in front of a grocery store and ask 100 people that came out, who's the judge, who's your county commissioner, who's your district representative at the legislature, who the sheriff is. The only one they ever get right is who the sheriff is.
Yeah.
It really is.
No, when I was campaigning for commissioner, and people said, "Oh, you know, that's a popular commissioner. You can't. Everybody knows him. You can't beat him." So I started knocking on doors, and I'd say, "Do you know who your county commissioner is?" And literally 1 out of 100 people.
Yeah.
So I'm like, well,
None
none of us are as popular as we
Yeah.
think we are.
That's right.
No.
People just don't know what every position does. I mean, you've asked who the clerk is or any of them. Now, I think Jeff Gavin's probably up there pretty high. He gets a,
I think Mary Hall, like.
I think the ones.
All is, yeah.
Well, I think it's the ones that don't, like, we change a lot, because we're challenged. I mean, the
Yeah.
judges and the auditors and the sheriff, they tend to stay in office for a long time, so they build up that name recognition over
well,
time.
the sheriff's got his name in the paper.
But when the
almost
commissioners
every
are
week.
changing every 2 years, it's hard to keep track for some people.
It is, it's unbelievable how the knowledge threshold just doesn't seem to be, in civics in general,
Well,
doesn't seem to be there.
I went to West Palm Beach and I couldn't go back and record it, but when we landed and we're going through the airport, right there on the exit is like West Palm Beach County Commissioners, and they had their pictures laid out there, and I was like, well, excuse me, why don't we? I tried to go back, but it was like right towards the exit, and I couldn't go back and take a picture of it, but
When
I laughed when I
Charles
saw
Daly was the mayor of Chicago forever, and then his boy filled the seats later, you know, as mayor. You talk about I don't know, advertising. that's-
Self-promotion.
Yeah, about promoting yourself, boy. I mean, but that's pretty common in all those eastern cities. It's unbelievable.
It is.
I mean, I don't know, half their budget must be on advertising for them. I don't know.
Your county commissioners at work.
We were at I was with my kids at the Deschutes Falls, you know, and there's that rock with the commissioners, the plaque, you know, and they were like, why isn't your name on this plaque? I'm like, they don't change the plaque every 2 years. It's whoever was in office when the thing got created, so. So we haven't made anything since I've been here, so I'm not on any plaques.
It's coming, tell them it's coming.
Yeah.
It's, but, I mean, for me, I remember it's like, oh, people are gonna stop you at the grocery store all the time, are you ready for it? I go to the grocery store almost like every day because of my little kids, and no one has ever stopped me. Apparently, the one time, Ramiro was there and he called my name, I was so oblivious,
It just happened, I went to the Safeway store and I just noticed that she was walking in. I just got out and said, Commissioner Mejia. I don't talk to peons.
zoned out, so I guess even if they did, I'm in la la land.
No, I suppose it'd be better if people knew more, but the
I-
reality is what it is.
I do agree with you though, and that's why I thought what the courts did, the color of justice, where they invited the kids to learn about, you know, and had attorneys come in and public defense and the prosecutor spoke on why they got into those specific fields and what they did and what Superior Court did and what District Court did. The kids were just like they were just so interested in it because they didn't know a lot of people here in our community don't even know how our justice system works.
No, they don't have a clue.
They don't know the difference between Superior and District Court even, and so it was just, I thought it was great. And I was like, I would like to see that expanded for all the offices here because, I mean, coming in, you know, it's like, well, what does your treasurer do? It's like, well, isn't that what the auditor does? Like, and why are they like so, and the assessor, and well, doesn't the bill come from the assessor? It's like, no, it comes from the treasurer. And it's little things like that people don't quite get.
Yeah.
They don't get it.
And it would be great to have, I don't know if it would be, I would be open to that or exploring that more on doing a community engagement on that and.
There you go, Megan. Good idea.
The youth council that Lacey has is really cool. I mean, not that we need another commission or board, but I mean, the youth council at Lacey is really cool. And my son's doing a project for it's gonna be some kind of TV show in the fall. So the debate team coach has got the debate kids, my son did debate last year, working on little speeches regarding how to get youth more involved in local government. So he was asking me for ideas and I didn't have a lot of great ideas. I mean, I'm gonna tell him about the court program that you just mentioned. I mentioned the Lacey Youth Council and, you know, some of the high schools have gotten climate action teams going and they got involved in some of the climate planning, but yeah, I don't know. You know?
Some of the school boards, I think, have brought in young people kind of to be involved in the governance from a advisory perspective. You know.
Student government.
Yeah, student government. They bring in maybe 2 to sit in on all the school board meetings. I don't know, maybe they can't be there for an executive session, but they're there for everything else. So a little bit, I hope.
It would be good.
Anyway, so we're done until noon, right?
Yes, sir.
We're back here at noon.
Okay, very good.
Okay.
We adjourn.